There are favorite chairs, and then there are favorite chairs. In the scene that I have in mind, 2020 vision that I have in mind, Matthew 20, verse 20, a couple of boys come up to Jesus and they ask for what they deem to be favorite chairs. Or an alternative reading might be a mother cajoling two boys, or actually the mother herself. You have to read the synoptics in order to understand why I'm a little confused as to who is doing the talking, but I can understand the maternal impulse that would want to egg her boys forward to be a member of the presidential campaign. Looks like this upstart of Nazareth might have a chance. So whoever got the conversation started, the one thing we know is that the rest of the disciples wish that they had gotten there first. Go check out the passage. The next thing we know is they're asking Jesus for the seats at his left and his right hand. The thing I want you to notice next is he does not chide them for being ambitious. Paul says in 1 Timothy 3:1 that the person who aspires to be an overseer, to take more responsibility, to look down strategically on a situation, they aspire to a good office. So Jesus doesn't chide them for being ambitious, ready to render spiritual service for the common good, but at right and left hand thrones. Pay you no mind to those details. So he doesn't chide them, but he does say, wow, that's quite the question. Can you drink the cup? And I think almost with the same sort of speed that it takes me to say that, read it in the text and answer, sure, no problem. I think the disciples answered rather trivially as well. Take the cup, no problem. Been drinking from cups my whole life. Jesus characteristically speaking to a bigger issue, to a narrow mind, shrugs with, yeah, you're going to drink the cup. But about the seats that you're asking about, I'm not sure I can really help you there. It's not really my prerogative to give left and right hand seats. It's the prerogative of my dad. He doesn't follow up, I'll put in a good word for you, but he does tell them how to do it. Now, here in the state of Tennessee, you do not have to have a driver's license unless you want to drive. You don't have to drive, but if you're going to drive, you're going to have a driver's license. But you don't have to have a driver's license in the state of Tennessee. You just can't drive legally. Why am I being silly like this? You don't have to be a leader in the kingdom. You don't have to be a leader in your community. You don't have to be a governor, gardener, guider, as Genesis chapter 1 speaks to your nature to say that you are. You don't have to. But if you're going to be a leader, you need to serve the most. That's how he answered the question. They said, how do I get to the places of prominence? He says, in this system, you serve the most. You serve the farthest. You serve the least. You just keep going. You eradicate the differences between who you see yourself to be and who those people are. And in service to me, you become the servant of many. He says, so you want to be the best? You want to be the greatest? Serve the most. And in making this invitation and responding to their question, I want you to see that he invites them to think about their thinking, to think about their leadership thinking. He invites them to be leadership theorists. You're like, pshaw, every professor thinks that whatever they're teaching is the thing that they're invited to give the universal answer on. But in this case, that's not so. In this case, he says, because you do not understand these things that I'm asking of you, you will indeed drink the cup, but you have no idea what I'm referring to. For the kings that rule over the earth, they have a vision and a model of leadership that rules over, lords over, controls, commands. It's about a strong man. It's about command control. He says, but it will not be named amongst you. You're the people of the towel and of the basin. Does it mean you're weak? Does it mean you are a chump? As a friend of mine said, he had finished talking about servant leadership and came out of his Texas pulpit, and one of the golf shirt fellows came up to him and said, "Pastor, if you're my servant, why don't you come on over this afternoon and wash my car?" And my buddy swiftly responded. He said, "Sir, I am indeed a servant. I'm just not yours. A master has made me the servant, and I take his bidding, and I am being moved by him. But I'm just not unemployed." You see, I don't do a whole lot of teaching and talking about servant leadership. It was popularized by Robert Greenleaf, 70s, 80s. Series have come from it, conferences, seminars, all kinds of beautiful speech around the servant leadership, statuary, awards of basins and towels. I just don't do a whole lot of teaching on servant leadership. The reason why is because I don't see a lot of it. Russell, you're so cynical. You are critical of everything around you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm thinking about Jesus holding a towel and holding a basin and washing Peter's feet. And if we think the story is about Jesus being the servant, then I think we miss the context of what that's all about. I believe he has a vision for the economy beyond the 12, for the religious economy of Israel beyond that, to the witness to the nations. That must happen. Read Acts chapter 10. You can see it's on his mind even when it's not on Peter's mind. But we see that Peter's reaction is actually the center of the story. He is aghast. "You cannot wash me. You cannot. You shall not. It's wrong for you to be in that role." And he says, "But if I don't wash you, I have no part inside of you." He speaks to him. Friends, if I saw people having the revolutionary reaction that we see Peter having, then I would more likely advance the topic of the servant in the way that we speak of it. But this business of washing feet and towels and those sort of things, I think, are adventures in missing the point, as Tony Campolo said. It's that reaction. That revolutionary world turning upside down. You have come from some other place to be able to walk out these practices in this way is written all over Peter's face. At Regent University in the grand hall of the library is a statue. It's about 5 to 6 feet in height, 8 to 9 feet wide, and about 6 feet square. And it's a bronze statue of a servant washing the feet of Peter. And the man who created the statue, I did some reading around it. You've probably seen this thing. I've put a picture of it at the bottom of the screen. He so fashioned the servant that the only way you could look into the servant's eyes is to either get down on your knees and look up, or to be a child of a particular height. Peter, however, another drama is taking place in the same scene, is looking down, and if you could look into the eyes of him in the statuary work that the sculpture has created, you would see that he is aghast. He cannot believe what is happening, like electric shock running through him. Has anyone ever looked at you that way? Has anyone ever asked, "Are you crazy? You can't be doing this. You can't be possibly considering this. This will be the end of your reputation." They'll pay you from cheap from now on if you go in the reverse direction, take that smaller opportunity. Have you had anyone call you crazy for selling all and moving on into some crazy career direction that didn't seem to match the trajectory that you were on? If you have a collection of these kinds of responses, then you're more like this servant reaction that I think the story's all about. Yeah, the reason he says that we need to study our leadership, that we need to think about the way the Gentiles lord and rule and control and command, is because the conception that was within people was the thing that got him killed. So politically committed to their model of leadership that in the end, A whole generation did not recognize him when he came. The actions he was doing to bring about the alignment and the fidelity of Israel were received as revolutionary and as foreign, and that he was the suspect one, though he was the only one on earth who had sanity. My friends, is it possible that a generation could be as faithful as it knows to be, but to criteria that are lower than it should be? And I think that's what we have in the Matthew 2020 vision. Someone saying, think on your model, think on your leadership. It's lethal. From a time he was a child, 2-year-old chased by swords, on hilltops of transfiguration, where his closest companions would say to him, don't be faithful, don't be faithful. Oh, did I forget what the passage said? It says, you're not going to die. You're not going to have to go and die. And his response to that being, I hear that voice again. I hear that voice chasing me one more time, trying to talk me out of being missional, to be who I'm called. And this is the module where we talk about the methods in our mission. And if this doesn't start with a person who has got this part straight, everything zings out from there. There will be no shalom if there's not shalom in the starting place of the initiators, the leader class. Yeah, that voice on the cross. Thief, thief, darkened sky, voices, tongues wagging demonically saying, do something. Show that you got some juice. Show that you got some power. Don't let these people treat you that way. One thief, that's a pretty good deal. Man, I'm getting crucified with, on lottery day with this guy. He's supposed to have some power. Houdini type power or something. But in the midst of all this craziness, this confusion, there's one boy and there's one voice who says, stay there. Don't disobey the impulse called fidelity, called mission, called servant. And it's in the Mark passage that says, for the Son of Man came to be a servant of many. Can you drink this cup? Is your culture your partner in drinking this cup? Are the things you see, you're seeing around you as you do these situational awareness sightings, are they your partner in drinking this cup? Is your model of leadership informed by stars, bars, and stripes, corner offices, titles, big paychecks? Or is the way up the way down in a Philippians 2 kind of way? I'll see you in the classroom.